Lent we mark as a sacred season, the season of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. But you know, as sacred and holy of a season as which this is, I must admit Lent is not my favorite season on the liturgical calendar. I mean, it's a sacred season, but it's also at times can be a rather challenging season. You know, it's not that I don't like the challenge. I mean, it's when we're challenged a bit is when we grow. And we need to change, and sometimes when we change, we become better people. But then again, it is a challenge. A challenge at times makes us feel a little uncomfortable, and it's not necessarily easy. Actually, they say one of the best ways to overcome, one of the difficult obstacles we face through this season of Lent is the idea of giving up, otherwise known as fasting. We give up or we fast through the season of Lent from candy, soda, eating in between meals, and even sometimes electronic devices. We give up and fast from those things that we like and enjoy the most. And that's what makes it difficult. I mean, why can't we just give up or fast from things that we don't care for, like broccoli or some vegetable? Perhaps fast from school or work. I mean, that would make this giving up idea a little easier. This past week, I decided I'd give up going to my office. It worked for most of the week, but there was a pile of work waiting for me when I got there. And all this time that we save, this money that we save by giving up, we just don't keep it to ourselves, but it goes to help somebody else. This may be a challenge at first, but at the end of the day, it gives us a good feeling. Lent can be a season of challenge, but it's a season of also a time of growing. Lent invites us to a time of a way of trying to make our lives more simple. And it's in the simpleness that the Lord invites us to return to the basics of our faith. As I've been journeying back to the basics of our faith this Lent season, something has struck me. It's the mercy of our God. Or rather, I should say it's an unnecessary mercy of our God. And I note that it's unnecessary because God does not have to give it to us, but He offers it to us anyhow. We've heard this echoed throughout our scripture readings through the past few weeks. Perhaps you may reconsider 2 weeks ago in our scriptures we heard about a fig tree that was not producing fruit. The owner of the garden said the tree should be cut down. It's a waste of space. But the gardener insists in giving the tree another chance. I'll prune, fertilize, and cultivate the soil around it. It may produce fruit. In just the same way, we may not have been producing fruit, and people may give up on us. But our God is always there, pruning, fertilizing, and cultivating us, and giving us another chance. Or perhaps you may recall last week, we heard about a father that had 2 sons. The younger son came to his father asking for his share of the inheritance. In other words, he was saying to his father to his face, I wish you were dead. How insulting. A true disgrace by any standards. Yet it's in the midst of this disgrace that the father gives his son what he asked for. The son leaves and squanders it all away. Yet the father still patiently waits for his son's return. And when he does return, he gives him that huge party. Or even today, we encounter a woman that was caught committing adultery. We may even get the sense that there might be some innocence. But the general consensus is that she's guilty. The punishment for such a crime is that she is to be stoned to death. We encounter the crowd that insists that she should be stoned. Yet Jesus responds by saying, "Let the one among you to be the first to throw a stone." And the crowd slowly goes away. After the crowd is gone, Jesus is alone with her. And Jesus gives her that unnecessary mercy and says, "Go and sin no more." These are 3 examples of the unnecessary mercy of our God. But there's other examples throughout our scriptures. Perhaps you might consider the parable of the Good Shepherd. We read about this unnecessary mercy of God in our scriptures, but we also experience it in our own lives. We experience it from our God when we participate in the sacraments, particularly the sacraments of the Eucharist. Many of us throughout the season experience it through the sacrament of confession as well. It's through these sacraments that we hear Jesus echo those same words to us. Go, and from now on, don't sin anymore. We experience this gift of God's unnecessary mercy for us. But we're also called to share it with others. A good example of this, I think, is an example of a parent who gives that mercy to a child after he or she misbehaves. How can you share this unnecessary mercy of our God? In our community, there are 2 priests that minister at the Precious Blood Ministry of Reconciliation Center in Chicago, in the back of the yards. And this is the worst of the worst area of the gang violence in Chicago. And there's much violence and much lives are lost to violence on account of gangs. And our priests in their ministry, they work with both the victims of violence, but also the perpetrators of the violence, as well as their families. One of the things that they do as part of their work is they work through restorative justice in our courts. So oftentimes within our courts, we settle differences, but the problems still can exist. But one example of them working through the courts is they tell a story of a group of a gang of teens. They went to a home and vandalized. And this night, as they were vandalizing the home, the police came. So those teens all scattered and ran. And they all got away but one teenager. He was probably the youngest of the crew. And so the judge recommended, instead of working through the lawyers and the complicatedness of what our courts can do, he said that they should sit down in a listening circle and work the problem out. So as they began to work out this listening process, the teen was in this circle, his mother, the homeowner, and a few others are priests, and they began their sharing. And the homeowner began by sharing, "By you breaking into my home, you've done much damage to our home. My son has, because you broke into our home, he's not felt comfortable to sleep at home for weeks on end." And then the mother spoke. She said, "I'm partly to blame. I'm a single mom. I have 3 kids, and I have to work 2 jobs just to make ends meet for my family, so I'm never there. Then the teen was given the opportunity to speak. He said, I'm sorry for the damages that I caused to your family. You know, I was just hanging around the wrong friends. I need to find new ones. The homeowner was given a chance to speak again. They asked him, do you need anything? The homeowner said, the only thing I needed to hear from this young man was to hear him say that I'm sorry. And if you need a father figure, if you need somebody to listen to, here's my card. Call me if you want to play basketball together sometime. Each of us has experienced the unnecessary mercy of God. Oftentimes it comes to us through somebody else. It's revealed in a special way, and it touches us. Yet just as much as we experience it, we're called to share it with one another. How can you share this mercy of God with another person?